And when I say hold yourself, I want all of you get ready to stop. When I say stop, don't move. And when I say get it, I want all of y'all to go boogie. Hold it now. Boogie woogie.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Discover RPG, the gaming chat show where we take your questions about RPGs and D&D, we substitute them with our own, and try our damnedest despite all forces in the universe and our own psyches to stay on topic.
Never gonna happen.
I am Angela. I'm gonna say I'm 70% of Angela right now, maybe 60.
What's the other 30 to 40%?
Mucus.
Oh, gross.
You asked.
I did that.
I am sadly suffering under the weather from a slight cold. I am, today of all days, very grateful for push-to-talk to keep sniffles to a minimum in the microphone. How are you today, Logan?
I am okay. I'm very tired. This has been a long week with Tessa's recovery and everything. There's just been a lot going on, and then of course we've got a lot going on with Nerdsmith, and that means that Logan does not get a lot of sleep. But that goes in waves. I'll be able to catch up on some sleep this weekend, and then I won't have that groggy feeling all the time. Not grog like that grog, not like I want to rage grog, just more like I want to sleep grog.
Mine's chamomile tea. It's not grog.
I don't have grog. Logan?
Anyway.
Tea? What?
Anyway, between rigorous applications of hand sanitizer and chamomile tea, let's talk about how...
What the hell are they talking about? Evidently, I have Matthew Siebert's thing on my thingy. How did I miss that?
Whoops. Hi, Matthew Siebert. He's here in spirit.
He is here in chat. He said he's being impostered. I swear I had this fixed a second. Did that do it? There we go. Ta-da!
Matthew Siebert's not being pod-personed anymore.
Okay, hold on. Something weird happened because the session plan didn't up. Like, we're doing all of last week's stuff. Something changed.
You're all trapped in Groundhog Day now, everyone.
Yeah, seriously. It's Groundhog Day. Where a much less attractive, fatter Matthew Siebert is here.
Anyway.
It's all the pastries. He's with you. That's the thing.
I don't...
See, no matter what.
I don't see an updated session plan.
What? We'll refresh.
Okay.
Wait, what? What is going on?
The gremlins have followed us into the top show.
I just updated it again.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
It's...
Don't worry about it. Just let the gremlins lie.
This is the last week. I promise we will be off of Streamlabs. As much as Streamlabs has been great up till now, it's boogie as crap right now. We will be over on OBS officially next week because I can't do this no more.
Okay, so let's take a bit. I gotta be on topic today.
Fine. I'm handsome as fuck. That's how much more handsome Matthew Siebert is. There are varying degrees of handsome. You know this, right?
So I've discovered that trying to sneeze on camera results in that feeling when you feel like you have to sneeze and then you don't. It's like the worst thing in the world.
All the time.
I was about to sneeze and then I saw the number 4 and I went, oh god, and then I couldn't sneeze.
4 people are going to see me sneeze. I think your internet has you covered there. It seems to be kind of choppy right now. Maybe it'll catch those moments and just stop you from looking like you're sneezing. Right now we can hear you just.
That's good. Let's go over session plan. I feel like we need to make the most of the time we have. Because
we may not be alive by the end of this.
No day but today.
So you want me to go through some?
Sure.
Normally you handle this, but I think you're. How about I handle the 60% of it that you are mucus?
Go ahead.
All right.
I said I was 60% me.
Oh, that's right, 40% mucus. So I'll handle 40% of it. So the top one, of course, as always, we start with our playful banner. Is this playful enough yet? Then we're going to talk about starting out. Some of these are not as witty as normal because I'm very tired. Starting out is literally what it sounds like. It's what do I need to know to start playing D&D? We're going to touch a little bit on the subject because this is a big topic. But we want to kind of lay the groundwork to do a small video series that kind of covers some of the things that maybe other people don't necessarily cover. Like a lot of people, and we'll tell you the same thing, start with, read the book, know your character, blah, 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 blah. But we want to kind of look at touching on maybe some of the more people-oriented options. We'll talk about that in a second. How big groups. I don't remember what we called this last week. Matthew Siebert and Angela talked about it, and I think, right? Didn't you?
Well, yeah.
Or did you talk about it with Jason?
No, this is a question from our dice winner, Fred Durf. He asked this in his dice winning post on Twitter. How do you keep large groups engaged? How do you manage groups of like 7 or more people and get all the players involved or invested in having fun? Right.
And we figured since I manage 16 people that maybe I should chime in a little bit on that. And that is not the only time that I have managed 16 people. I had when I owned my game store, I had a Sunday game that ran 16 people all at the same time at the table. So, and I didn't have any DM assistants because I was insane. Then we're going to talk Taming of the Brew. Today we've got Baby Bestiary, which is a very cool little product we'll talk about.
It is a homebrew in which we venture to murder Tessa with cuteness.
Yes. And then after that, we've got Player versus Player, which is just what it sounds like. We want to talk a little bit about PvP, specifically when it comes to when should you be rolling against other players, or should you be rolling ever against other players? Quick on your feet is improv tips, talking about we found this question somewhere. I think it was on our D&D on Reddit, and it was asking specifically what do I do when players are wandering around talking to guards and things in the town, and how do I stay on my feet? How do I not make them all sound like they're idiots and not know anything about the town that they're in when I don't know anything? And we'll talk a little bit about that. All systems go. We're going to talk about a new one-page RPG. We love one-page RPGs here. This one is called Battery Life, where you play a robot whose batteries are slowly draining, which I'm very excited about. I've only glanced at it, so I'm going to come at it from
That's the beauty of a one-page.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. You don't need to do much more than that. And then last, I has a flavor, which is we're going to be talking about last week you talked about the revised artificer and some of the knitting spider for healing. So we're going to talk about other ways to kind of improve the potion of healing, or
how to reflavor it.
Healing. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that and come up with some cool ideas. So that is that is it. That's our session plan for today.
It's quite robust and exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
I think we had a couple of quick announcements, just so we don't forget them.
Sure.
I think Homebrew Studio will not be happening tonight.
So sad, Matthew. We love you.
Yeah, we love you, Matthew, but Matthew's had to cancel Homebrew Studio tonight, which is completely okay. And we don't have anything to fill the spot just now. In the future, we may have other things to be able to fill in, but right now we don't. But as we get more geared up, we'll figure out how to make sure that those holes don't just go. Never mind. I stopped myself. Not talking about the tiefling hole anymore.
And yet
I just did.
That seems like enough playful banter.
I think that is enough playful banter. Is that enough playful? Everyone okay there?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Playful banter? You want more or less playful banter?
All right. So let's look at the first topic. So again, I was sort of not trolling. I was dredging through D&D Reddit and found a question that...
Trolling is the appropriate term there.
It just has more than one meaning now, that's all.
I know.
So I found a question from someone asking, I've never played D&D before, I've never sat at an RPG table before. What are some basic things I need to know when I first sit down? What are some tips and advice for a absolutely brand new player? And I think that there are, like you had said before, there are the obvious ones of understand the rules, but I think working with your DM to understand how much of the rules you need to know
that's exactly
is very important.
Because some DMs may not need you to do anything. I have run D&D for people without explaining any rules. I have varied explanations for role playing depending on who I'm talking to and what the experience level they have. I can run somebody through a quote unquote role play game with no dice, no character sheets, nothing, to give them a feel for what it's like. You know, one of the things when I was playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons for a while, back before 3.0 came out, it was so complex and it took so long to make characters for me and new players that I started to resent it. I didn't like it very much, especially when I had an old school D&D DM who would just kill you outright. So I always liked White Wolf because that's where I started. And, somebody said, well, White Wolf's complicated too. I said, no, I can teach somebody how to make a character sheet in 3 minutes. And he said, prove it. And I sat down and pulled up a sheet, and because I always had sheets on me, and I literally was able to show 90% of it in less than just 2 minutes. I said, the only thing you really need to understand, other than what's on the sheet, is some of the special powers that the vampires or werewolves or whatever might have. But the basic game I can teach you how to play, and you could be playing in less than 10 minutes. You don't even need to worry about your special abilities. You're right off the bat. And I think D&D could be explained the same way. If you just went with stats and skills, just left it there for a minute, you could teach D&D very, very quickly. And I think a lot of DMs should start there. But the question comes down to, as a player, it's somebody who's never sat down before, what do? You will talk to your DM. I'm going to say first rule is always my first rule. Communication is key. Talk to them, find out exactly what it is. Rule number 2 for a brand new player, for me, the thing that if I could get them to understand nothing else, I would want them to understand that every table is different, and no matter what happens at this table, it is worth experiencing other tables. It's worth experiencing other DMs. Do not go into this with the expectation that it is going to be the worst or the best experience of your life. Go into it to have fun and understand that whatever happens, it is wholly unique because no table is like that table. I've had so many people said, well, I tried D&D and the DM was a dick or the players were a dick, so I never played it again. Don't. Try it again. Find a different group. It's always okay if it's something you're interested in, for me. That is one thing I would always want people to understand. And I don't think enough people talk about that aspect of this game. It's come up a lot lately because a lot of new players are going in with the expectations. They've only seen Critical Role. they have this expectation that the game's going to be like Critical Role, and not every DM is Matt. Not every bard is Sam. It's just that's
well, okay. But there's even beyond that, thinking of it in terms of aspirational, there's a charm to not having that level of performance pressure. If you have people that trust each other and get along, you should be able to have a good time, and understanding that you can have a good time in different types of game tables with different types of game style. It does not have to be that high drama. Yeah. Some of the best advice that I was seeing included remember your character's name. It's on your sheet. Bonus points if you remember the other characters' names. Yes. So we're talking like bare bones. You've never touched an RPG before. Take it seriously. Do what you can to try to catch up on the rules if that's something that your DM asks of you. And think about your character. Put at least as much effort as you might think other people are putting in. And if you haven't put as much work into your character, be polite to the other people at the table. Don't deliberately disrupt other people's fun. That if you see that there are some people that are acting, don't laugh at them at the table. Don't be a dick. But at the same token, taking it seriously is one part, but also don't take it too seriously. Have fun, be silly, enjoy the fact that you're all just having this hero fantasy together.
Yeah. I've heard D&D described, I heard role-playing described a lot of different ways. Cops and robbers with rules, it's that's one of my favorites. It's what if another way I like to describe it, and there was a whole article that I don't think we're talking about today, but I posted to you. It was talking about the DM agency, the DM, taking more of a role and the rules meaning less, and how that's taking away evidently the appeal of D&D. And I'm like, I seriously doubt that's what happens. But the article itself didn't really make that point strongly in any way that I could read, and I had a couple other people look at it too, thought I was missing something. But this idea that that I don't remember what my point was. What were we talking about? I completely lost it. My brain just went 3 different places.
There was an article.
No, what were you saying before that? Because that's
I was talking about not getting too stressed out. Take it seriously in terms of putting the investment in that the rest of the players are, but not taking it so seriously that you suck the fun out of everything. It is inherently a silly thing to be doing. So embrace it. Embrace the fact that you're, playing a knight fighting a goblin. That it's an inherently absurd thing, and just sort of embrace it.
Yeah. We were talking about the ways to describe D&D as cops and robbers with, and I don't remember what the point was of that article. So I'm going to go back to that at some point, but whatever.
We'll revisit it. We'll bring it back to the show.
That's my memory sometimes. Right in the middle of a thought, it's just gone.
So if you guys have any, sort of number one basic starting out rules that you give to somebody if they've never, not even just never played D&D, but never touched an RPG before, never come to a role-playing table, let us know. Use #DiscoverRPG and tell us. You'll get put into a dice giveaway.
Oh, that's yes. Yeah, if you use our hashtag right now, you get put in a dice pool. So video games. The point was that this article was making that why would you play video games why would you play D&D when you can play video games, basically, is kind of the point of some of this article. And they make a point for it, this idea that it's the DM. And one of the big things that I've always liked, that I've always felt struggle with in D&D is I have a rocket launcher and I want to go through that wall. Why can't I just go through this wooden wall with my rocket launcher? Well, in D&D you can. You can be like, hey, DM, there's a wooden wall right there, right? Yeah, I'm going to blow the shit out of it with my fireball. Okay, now I can walk through this wall. Great. Thank you. Because for some reason, I couldn't get around otherwise.
The only restrictions that you have in a tabletop game are the structured rules that your DM chooses to use and your own imagination. And if the structure your DM decides to use are the laws of physics, then maybe you hit a couple of snags that you weren't expecting. But yeah, you can work so far beyond the limitations of a video game is inherently ones and zeros with very strict rules, and when they break the rules, you notice. When something clips through a wall, you notice. It's not designed for that.
That was something else I was going to say, that if we have this idea that if I could beam knowledge and experience and into people's heads, what I would really love them to understand also is what you just said, talking about physics being kind of a limiter in a world of magic. That seems like an absurd idea, but there is I'm trying to think of the phrase for it. There's a suspension of disbelief that only will take you so far. Suspension of belief that will only take you so far. You can jump up on a 2-story building, climb up. You might be able to jump up on a 3rd-story, climb up. You're not going to jump to the moon, Brian. Sorry. But
shots to the moon fired.
Yeah, we played a Gestalt game that got up to about 30th level, and he figured out he was able to jump to the moon, and he died, but he made it.
But he made it.
He made it. That was the point. Actually, I don't think he died. I think he was invincible at the time. Anyway, it was a ridiculously overpowered, stupid game. So the point is, there's going to be a level that you're going to hit, that everyone hits. The problem is that level is different for different people. And the DMs is the one that matters. So you've got to go in with this kind of an open mind that the DM may allow something, or the DM may not allow something because it doesn't fit into their view of what the metaphysics of the world and the physics of the world is like. Now, the big thing, though, is you want to watch for is consistency. If the DM does rules one way for him and another way for the players, that's where personally I have a problem. It's like either it works or it doesn't. That's one sign that you might be in a D&D game that's struggling. Actually, that might be a whole great video right there, since we're not going to have our debrief after this. The idea of signs that some actual like serious signs that you might want to watch for as a new player, that you might want to get a new D&D group or try a different D&D group out. One of them being that. I think that's a great idea. It's a good article.
Signs that your table isn't a good fit.
Yeah, that's perfect. And they can be subtle like that. Just this idea that if you're annoyed by, or if you struggle with any of these things, if these things bother you and you see them at your table, step one. What's step one? What's rule one? Communicate. Talk to your DM. And if it's something that they're just like, yeah, that's just the way it is, well, okay, maybe find a move on.
There's also considerations there in terms of resources in case you want to keep playing, but you feel like you don't have, like, what if that's your friend group? How do you extricate yourself from your friends? If you're not having fun in your game group, you shouldn't feel trapped. If it really depends on what you're there for. If you're there to hang out with your friends, maybe you tough it out, or you suggest we play something different, or you figure out a different thing to engage with them. You want to
offer to DM and then become the main DM for your group in high school, like some of us. Or
if you're you want to hang out with your friends, but what you really did was catch the D&D bug, there are places and sites, there are online and real-life resources to find D&D groups to play with. So maybe that's also some of it. It's like signs that your table isn't a good fit, and what do I do now? So yeah, we will expand on those, I think. I think those are good topics to expand on.
Yes. Good topics. I guess we're done. We came up with new topics. That's for next week. See you guys. Bye.
Woo. So we talked about brand new players. So you're a DM with no sense of self-preservation, and you decide to run a game that has 7 or more people in it. Has that happened to you, Logan?
I don't think 7 is an unreasonable number.
But that is, I would say
but that I agree that's where it starts to get complicated.
Yes, 6 is the max for a standard table party, I would say. It's at least the maximum I would put on a streaming show because of layout.
Although seeing some other people's layouts, we could easily fit those size logos.
20 people!
Okay, so we ran a game in the Tolus setting. This was a personal game. It was West Marches. It was 11 people, and very often we had 8, 9, 10, 11 people all sitting on stream, and it did become difficult. There are people that can handle that type of game, and there's people that can't handle that type of game. The concern as a DM at that point, when you're playing with that many people in a single group, or up to 16, because I did run with 16 for almost a year and a half, is the level of respect that the players are showing the game and showing each other. I had a struggle because we had one player that was always constantly late when we had 17 people in the game at my game store, and this player could just consistently become late. Wasn't working, wasn't doing anything, just forgot, slept in, whatever. Checked in a few times, made sure that it wasn't, anything that they can control, and it was all completely stuff that they can control. And eventually we had to drop them because they were being disrespectful to the game. Now, I would have tried other things knowing what I know now. This was a few years ago. This was 12 years ago. Good Lord, 12, 13 years ago. So God, that was a long time ago. Anyway, sorry. I hate when that happens. But that's it. And then it also comes down to my other main concern is everyone getting time. I call them moments now, but more back then it was time. Are people getting the time they deserve? So you think if you're going to be playing for 4 hours, we typically actually played for 10, but you should play for 4 hours and you've got 8 people, you're talking each person's max is going to be half an hour worth of total time over the course of the game. Depending on the situation, and you got to think you're going to take a break in there, and people are going to goof off, and DMs going to be looking at the rules, and so it really comes down to about 15 minutes a person over 4 hours. So you got to make sure that those moments matter. You got to give them a significant point, and the more players you add, the more you have to track. Now, I'm really bad at this, and I am not the best to succeed in doing that. There are times, and I've had discussions with players, with the way that I storytell and the way things come across, especially for our stream, sometimes people are going to feel like background characters during stream, but then I promise them other times you're going to be in the forefront. It's just going to kind of rotate. So you may not always get your 15 minutes every session, but you will get it at some point. There will be a significant, important moment for every character here or there. But I also say that you need to grab onto those moments when you can. So you got to watch for them, you got to be ready for them, and you got to grab onto them. So there's a lot to take into consideration. Now, managing overall, if we're just talking details of management, use a program called doodle.com. We use it all the time to schedule. It's a great thing. You say, here are all the days I as the DM are available all the times, and everybody can go in and go, yes, I can make that, I can make that, I can't make that, I can make that. And then it gives you a list of, here's the day that everyone can make it. And you go, haha, we found D&D. And we're going to D&D on that day.
The code.
Until the next day when somebody's like, no, I just got called into work and I can't make it. Which happens. With a large group, you're going to have a lot more canceled games, or you have to learn to run without people. And then you get into the question of, am I going to Jaeger, which means take control over their character, or am I going to let a player take control of their character, or are they just not going to be there? If you have a way to work in, that works out. In that big 16-player game, we just instituted what we called BAMF. Sometimes players just kind of BAMFed out of existence, and they would BAMF back in later. It was a part of the metaphysics of the world. It's just how it worked. And no one talked about it. And it worked for a home game. It wouldn't work for a stream, I don't think. It's kind of silly and ridiculous. But that's what it was. It's just people would just sometimes blink out of existence. And then you kind of forgot about them and didn't talk about them. And all of a sudden, sometimes they'd be there. And it worked really well.
I to think someone had to go on a really long pee break. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Over the corner, and then you're on 3 levels lower on the dungeon. I'm back. Yeah. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I just went in the corner.
You do not have to go through the particulars of how going to the restroom works in your world. That's one of those suspension of belief moments.
I was going to say, unless you were here a few weeks ago when we talked about the house rule where the guy said you had to track all that.
Everyone gets a stopwatch, and they have to, rather the DM has a stopwatch, and it's just like, okay. Why did it turn into 24?
Yeah, right. Okay, good. I was like, is that the thing for the? So take notes. Keep a Google Doc, a spreadsheet. Keep good notes.
Keep good notes.
I had spreadsheets that would divide treasure and would divide up experience. I had so many notes and different charts and things. I had little check boxes to make sure that everyone was getting, their chance. I had little check boxes to make sure that everyone was getting killing blows, because I would slightly adjust things to make sure that over the course of a couple of months, everyone got a killing blow in. So they felt like they were, because that was a big deal back in 3.5.
Well, it's a very visceral
system, but
it's visceral when you think about the idea of flashing back to moments that were really cool in the game. Oh, you remember when this is not a joke. You remember when she shot Orcus's dick off? Like, oh my god, that was amazing. But like that idea of those really big hero moments, those defeating the evil being or the antagonists, those are things that people remember. And so to not, even if you were like, I did 95% of the damage in that fight, but didn't get the killing blow, you tend to just remember that you didn't get the killing blow than the sort of passive or the DPS damage you're doing.
Yeah. It was blue off Orcus's dicks. It was shot Tiamat.
I know, but I'm just
because I misread.
I was protecting the identity of and then Tessa outed herself in chat.
Yeah, I was gonna say I misread Staff of Power and accidentally made it exponentially more powerful when it was broken while standing.
He didn't see staff was in quotes, so it was like, oops.
Yeah. So I think it did 400 and some odd damage instead of like the 150 it should have done. Because I misread how it was calculated, and you know what? That goes to another good point. I think that should it. If you as a DM make a mistake, let it stand. Especially if it's in the player's favor. For the most part, there's some times when I've had to retcon and change things, but 99% of the time, if it's in the player's favor, I let it stand. I don't care what it is because.
Part of part of the circumstances surrounding being an epic hero is sometimes stupid shit happens and it just helps you. You fail up sometimes.
Last night was a great example. I misunderstood the banishment spell. They tried to banish a character, concentrated on it for 10 rounds, but this character was from this plane. But I thought that they didn't come back after that, even though they were from this plane. So I think what I was thinking was planar shift, I think is the one I was thinking of. So I was like, okay, but when we went on break, they found out that nope, the person was supposed to come back. But I'm like, no, not here, not this time. For some reason, not this time. But we also had a session where random things happened. They cast Speak with Dead on a corpse, and it came back to life. So there's a lot of weird things happening.
Well, Logan, you established the moment we showed up on Lamina Island that teleportation gets messed with. So it seems to me that's part of the course. Yeah,
absolutely. That being said, though, doesn't matter where it would have been. I probably would have let that one stand, especially in this circumstance.
Sure. This is a good example of a DM tool that can really help you. I think that going into scenarios and establishing with your players that like magic might work different here than you're used to. That's a huge cushion if you fuck up. You can just be like, well, magic's weird here, guys. I don't know.
In my session 0, I talk about that a little bit. And I should probably talk about it more. So magic is always fickle. Magic is always different.
It's not a science.
It is not an exact science. It is. There's a level of science to it, but it's not an exact science. And that is how I explain 90% of that types of thing. The thing is, in the real world, if you go and learn, a martial arts or learn how to fight with a weapon, it doesn't matter how much you learn. Something about any particular battle or spar or whatever is going to change how you do something. You're not only going to, if you only use the training you're given and don't improvise at all, you're going to lose. And so that's why I'm like, I don't really care if somebody screws up a little bit on a spell or something, as long as it's not mind-blowingly overpowered or altering, but even if it is, and it's a mistake I've made, I will usually let it stand.
I know we're sort of tangenting off to the side
that's
here.
What we do.
But there's something really interesting to me about maybe introducing a character early on in your campaign that is, for all intents and purposes, like your arcane Yoda, who explains that, like, any number of variables, you can be trained for decades, and any number of variables can fuck up the thing you're intending to do. Where it's like, the humidity could fuck up your spell. Like, we don't know. But sometimes
magic is.
But this idea but the idea that introducing a character who is ostensibly the expert, who still is like, there are gaps in our understanding of how things work, creating a world where you can try as much as possible, and we have, as a society, tried as much as possible to harness magic in a predictable way. This somatic component plus this verbal component equals spell. But there are still variables that are impossible to quantify that could slightly adjust what happens. And if you introduce that early, it, like I said, gives you a bit of a cushion. If something weird happens, you can just sort of hand wave it and be like, I don't know, man. Wind's going left today. I don't know. It's just something weird. Yeah. But this idea of creating an uncertainty within what, for most of the time, is a certainty, I think is an interesting way to build your magic reality.
Mm-hmm. The way I kind of think of it, in Eberron, there are things called manifest zones. There are special zones of the world, parts of the world, where magic is leaked in from somewhere. The most famous example being Sharn. The city of Sharn is a ridiculously tall series of towers that could not exist anywhere else in the world, but exist there because the elemental plane of air is there and gravity works a little different. Special wood basically floats there. Soar wood will float, so they've made little sky skiffs that go between the different towers and things. It's really a cool little place. I think of it kind of like that, but more in a all over the world, that there can be these radiations from all the different planes, but they kind of flow like air throughout the world. They can kind of overlap or mix. A lot of like the Dresden Files series basically has that. They're just ley lines, just intersections between the Fae and mortal worlds that allow magic. Ley lines are usually more specific to a place. I was thinking these kind of flow and can change. So no matter, so if you're in one
currents.
place,
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so if you're in one place at one point and do one thing, it might work one way, and then the next time you hear somebody does the exact same thing, it might be slightly different, or could be because of this, because of some influence that's just kind of wafted over or in. It just changes things slightly, butterfly effect type stuff.
Writing down notes to steal idea.
Okay. 40 minutes in, we've gotten through one question, so we might want to think about moving on.
Two! We're in big groups. We're on two.
Oh, you're right. We are. All right, never mind. We're doing good.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of logistics of managing. Well, I'll steer us back. There's a lot of logistics of managing large groups, and there's a lot of personality management. There's a lot of HR considerations when dealing with larger groups. I would agree that 7's not quite hitting that threshold. It gets a little more complicated to keep everyone engaged at 7. But you start getting into 12, and they're like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do here? And that is where you might want to start leaning into West Marches instead of everybody shows up at the same table, unless you have some magical group in which everybody can coordinate and get there on the same day. Setting up a system in which you start the campaign built in such a way that people can step away and not feel like they're missing out on big story moments. So anything from, a military story where you're all based on a camp, and if whoever's there happens to be the ones that get sent on a mission, that's one way that you can control the management of a large group is creating a scenario in which your characters don't all have to be there, or probably wouldn't all be there at the same time. I think that's tremendously helpful. If you know you're going to be in that circumstance with a ton of people, cater your campaign to fit that group of people. Different styles of campaign are better suited for small or large groups. Not that there's not a one size fits all campaign style when you're dealing with such a tremendously variable size of a party. With the Tolus game that Logan ran, we were all based in an urban city. Tolus was basically the campaign setting for the vast majority of the game. Just things happened in the city, and we had lives outside of the adventuring sessions. So that allowed you to say, oh, well, my character's I can't play that night. My character's off doing something else. And you can fill in those gaps if you want. You can fill in those gaps with we had like downtime writing or role play between one or two people that weren't in that session, just to be like, we wanted to tell a story, so here's the story of what happened when they were gone. Yeah. You can really cater that sort of like a more urban, large-scale city setting. Like I said, a military setting would work. If you're in a group that gets orders and gets doled out on away missions, that's easily a way you can break people up based on who can show up to a session. It's just understanding what sort of style of campaign is going to work best for those logistic considerations. And the mantra, communicate. When there's a lot of people, you can lose track of conflict, whether that's inter-party or interpersonal conflict, or stress. You want to check in with your players as much as you can. Take that time. Make sure that you have the bandwidth, you have the spoons or the emotional energy to check in with each of your players every once in a while, because you want to make sure that everyone's still having fun, everyone is still feeling like they're contributing and getting what they want out of the game. So yeah, it's communicating and planning ahead as much as possible to fit, but you also have to be willing to adjust when you realize, oh, okay, so this isn't working. We're going to have to adjust the structure of the game.
It's something, I'll tell you the most recent lesson that I've learned, the most recent change I've made to how I communicate and deal with my large group. I have started, instead of typing up notes and maybe points or reminders or things like that, instead of typing those up and posting them in our group chats, I have and will continue to do little videos. So people can see me and see me smiling and understand that I'm not upset about things, or that I'm not,
DM fireside chats. I like it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's DM fireside chat. I think it goes a long way to showing the emotion behind my comments and understand they really are just reminders. I'm not upset. I'm just saying, here's some things we need to work on, especially when we're dealing with an audience and things. Here's some things that I want to make sure that we remember. Here's a couple of things, or here's your treasure. I might even do, I don't know exactly what, but that would also give me the opportunity to describe the different pieces of treasure and things. So I think it's kind of a neat idea. But when you can't quite get everyone together in one spot all the time, it's a neat way of communicating that allows you to do full communication, not just the 30 or 40% of communication that text gets out there. Shall we move on?
Sure.
Because these days are fucking cute.
Okay, so I'm going to put a link in our chat, and it'll be on the video.
Can you link? What are you linking to? I can't link to that.
No, but it's where you could buy the book if you wanted. So I recently backed a Kickstarter.
Baby Elementals.
Yes, I recently backed a Kickstarter from a group. Hold on.
I never thought about Baby Elementals.
Right?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
I was like, Elementals just exist, but they're baby.
So the Baby Bestiary is a couple of expansions for 5e from Metal Weave Games. Now, the premise of which I'm sure you can predict is a series of stat blocks and information and lore for baby versions of a huge number of D&D creatures. It's fabulous. The art is gorgeous. Just from a formatting perspective, Yeah, it's absolutely adorable.
Baby beholders.
Right. I mean, clearly their flagship creature is the baby owlbear.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
It's all over the front cover, and it's super adorable.
I'm on the second one. I started with the second one because I figured you started with the first one. I think I did. Well, whatever. Baby. Okay, hold on. Gelatinous cubelet. It's a little baby gelatinous cube with, instead of like, it's got mama on the back with all the, of course, adventures in it dying, and it's got the little baby in the front. It's got little bugs in it and stuff. It's very cute.
So, all right. So things like a blink puppy, which we've done before, actually. I'm sorry, a Bulette Billy. A Billy being
Bulette Billy is very cool.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things in here. One, they have their like combat stats, right? And the first thing in my brain was, who'd want to fight one of these things? They're so cute. It would make, how do you incorporate a baby monster into a campaign? Now, I've got a couple of ideas, and I'm curious if Logan has any additional ones, but the biggest ones here are pets, obviously. Maybe an animal companion or like a beast companion, depending on the flavor of ranger or druid that you might have. Or if you have something else. A wizard could have an animal companion in your story. You could, as Matthew said, a baby adventurer would be adorable. You could have maybe everybody plays a baby animal and you just have some sort of weird petting zoo themed adventure that you all play in. There is, in addition to the baby bestiary, there is in the grouping of downloadable stuff that I got from this Kickstarter from Metalweave, they included a warlock subtype called the Caretaker Warlock. And the idea being that you have signed, oh my god, Zach just ruined my train of thought right now with Land Before Time D&D edition. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. What was I saying? Okay, so some of the things they included were a caretaker warlock, where the premise of the warlock is that your patron has not been born yet. You have an egg of a creature, and it's where you get your power, and your goal is to safekeep the infant or the unborn patron, and when it gets born, it's then your patron. Like, it doesn't necessarily know that that's where its power comes from, but you are fully committed to taking care of this creature and devoting your life to it. And so I thought that was a very interesting flavor for a warlock, where you don't have an animosity or you don't have some sort of like hidden agenda with your patron. You are, by all intents and purposes, the authority in the situation, but the creature is full of so much power, and you are connected intrinsically with that power, and you are its caretaker. I very much enjoy that. Yeah. Matthew, well, that's how Nanny and the Muppet Babies got her eldritch powers. I should have known with those striped socks that she had witchy tendencies.
So, all right, because I have to be the voice of reason here.
Go ahead.
The Rakshasa kittens do not have backwards hands, so I'm a little upset about that.
Well, maybe they slowly rotate. You know how babies don't have fully formed cartilage and bones yet? Okay. It's like a soft spot, but in their wrist. You're welcome.
Well, I will say I have not read the entire article yet, so there's possible that they do mention that. But
so ways that you could incorporate a baby animal, a baby monster into your game. As I said, a pet, the caretaker warlock. So you basically have it more of a like an arcane focus kind of thing, where you're protecting something. It's an escort mission. You can, there is an addition in the baby bestiary to have an animal companion. So basically like having a minion. So there's a whole level up table for them, and you can pick the creature that you want to have. And it's basically like an animal companion sort of setup. What other, I mean, like I said, I super hesitate to introduce any of these. They're too cute to introduce them as like combat opponents. I can't imagine doing that.
But wouldn't that be horrible? Oh, horrible. Because like the Bugbear Kid, oh my god, so adorable. but 20, 30 of them, they're formidable foes. There's this whole thing like how many 12-year-olds do you think it would take to, or how many first graders do you think it would take to take you down? I think this is a great thing. How many bugbear kids would it take to take you down? And looking at these stats, not a lot.
So what do you think, Logan? What are some other, if you can think of anything, what's another way of incorporating a baby monster into a game? Maybe like we had a petting, not a petting zoo, a pet store. We had a pet store that we had to go find animals that broke out of the pet store. You could do something like that.
Did you do Prophecy Child?
No, I did not do that.
So Prophecy Child is one, that they're born a way that they're not supposed to be. You could do what was that movie with what's his name? The Of Man movie, the one where none of the women had given birth for years, and all of a sudden, Children of Men, and then all of a sudden one woman did, or something like that. I just
like a Save the Pandas kind of story.
Yeah, I just got to Elder Godspawn. So a little baby Cthulhu would be pretty amazing. That would be great for the, as you were saying, for the patron one.
Yeah.
The idea that in Werewolf, there's this child of prophecy idea that there's always in Werewolf the Apocalypse, there's two people who are purebred werewolves can't mate, or they can. If they do, they come up with a disfigured child, and this disfigurement is called a metis child. Well, there's this thing called the perfect metis, the metis that has no flaw, and if it's ever born, then it's a sign of the coming apocalypse. You can do something like that. Again, the child of prophecy in general is always a good one for me when you're introducing children. I also like the idea of just kind of throwing them in and seeing what the players do. You just have a little baby bugbear walking around the street randomly, no parents to be seen. What do they do with that child? Because I guarantee you, I've never seen a D&D group in the world that won't go and help a lost child.
I went, wait, there has to be a Kieran full. Please tell me there's a Kieran full. And then I Googled Kieran, and there was a Kieran full in the thing. Yeah, I am just a huge fan. I'm stealing a whole bunch of these for my Gentle D&D campaign that I'm going to run, because why wouldn't you have baby anythings?
They have one of my favorites, which is the Hound Archon. They have the Hound Archon pup, which is great. The Hydra Snakelet, I love. So many snoots to boot. Baby Krakens. This is just an incredible amount of work and art. I can't even get over how amazing everything is here. The Medusa daughter. This is.
I am not sure. I'm pretty sure they kickstarted this one as well, which is why they were able to produce such beautiful art, or at least get the permission for. Yeah, they have a backer shout out page. So yeah, it's incredibly cool. I highly recommend you checking them out.
Well, I also love that a lot of the backgrounds are not necessarily what some people might call typical. Like the ogre mage is in a house. The child is in a house. This idea that they don't go with the stereotypical, hovel or hollowed out wood, tree or whatever you might think ogres might come from.
Yeah, I fully endorse the baby bestiary. I think. Yeah, I think that it's very cool. Zach mentioned maybe sort of like a Pokemon vibe. If you wanted to basically, I would be fair. That is a fair thing. If you wanted to create Pokemon in D&D, you would use the baby bestiary as your template, I would think.
I was going to say, we did for a while. We tried as one of the concepts is we tried to throw a little Pokemon feel into the prequels for this game. We were trying to see. I was playing around with a lot of different ideas, and
the prequel for Countless Heroes. You mean for
Countless Heroes? And one of the idea was this little device that would kind of duplicate a creature that exists and give you a little illusionary version of it. It was a cute concept. It was not where I wanted to go with this game, but it was a cute concept.
But yeah, so I fully endorse picking up the Baby Bestiary.
And this is unpaid. We didn't even. I don't even think we spoke with him yet at this point. But we bought it and we just love it.
Well, I got this is a segue to promoting what the Metalweave's next project is. They just kickstarted Awakened, which anybody who watches Countless Heroes knows that one of our heroes is GB, who is an awakened dog. And this is an entire book about with pre-made awakened animals that could be adventurers in your party, or how to make your own awakened animals. Not a baby beast or not a baby monster, but a sentient, like PC level character. There's a lot of really cute ones. I saw a cow. I saw a bunch of stuff. There's a dog. I'm pretty sure there was an owlbear druid, which was the cutest thing I had seen ever. But so the Awakened series book is what is being currently kickstarted, and the Baby Bestiary was one of the backer perks to backing the Awakened series. So I'm sure we'll talk about the Awakened books at some point too, because the idea of having a rogue, not a Kenku, but a crow, like a literal crow, as a PC can definitely fit in a lot of people's games. Not necessarily everybody's, but you want to put a little dash of whimsy in your fantasy. Sentient animals are definitely a way to go with that. It was a baby cow, Tessa. Relax. It was a
baby cow. So, yeah, Baby Bestiary. 2 thumbs up here. I'm very excited with it. It's definitely going to be using some of that for my own. This is very, very good stuff.
There's no use crying over sour milk, Tessa.
What's wrong?
She said she's been soured on cows, and there was a soured milk joke in there somewhere. I don't know.
Yes, just because she milked a princess of the Fae.
It happens. For every Orcus murder, there's that. You know, yes. It balances out.
For every dick you blow off, you've got to milk a princess. Well,
that was
all right?
Yeah. Okay. Next topic. All right. So.
Thanks. I hate it. Porked lightning.
I allowed it.
What's wrong with porked lightning?
I think pork got flagged by the. I think pork got flagged.
Stupid. This thing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Pork lightning. I love pork lightning.
So the next subject, we'll talk about more game stuff. Okay. Let me give you a scenario.
She was not the queen of the Fae. She was the queen of that realm. Yeah.
Let's move on. All right. So let me give you a scenario, Logan. Somebody, you have your party, they're in a bar, they're just hanging out casually, and the rogue in the party is trying to pay back the proud paladin who doesn't want to get paid for buying a round for the table, and proceeds to try to sneak money into the paladin's purse, and you have them roll a contested skill check of sleight of hand versus, let's say,
you found a positive way to do this. I'm surprised. I did. Good job. So, that was your challenge for the week.
So the question we had was, do you allow players to roll against each other? And this is not just we're not just talking in a combat scenario, because that's sort of the extreme version, but even just contested skill checks.
So I personally been thinking about this one a lot.
Go for it.
Here's where I'm coming down to draw the line. I'm open to talk about this more and in my games and stuff, but I've been thinking about this one a lot because there's been a lot of congestion.
Consternation.
No, that's you. Congestion is you. Got it. A lot of different opinions on this. Here's the big one it comes down to for me. Player agency is the most important factor. If the role that you're trying to make is going to force the player to have their character change their mind on something, then you do not get to roll that. You don't get to try to convince them that you're not lying or convince them that you're lying. If they believe that is their character, they get to decide that. If they want to let you try to convince them and roll, that is on them. But I will not call for a roll if you're trying to change their mind. If you are trying to do something nice, I will probably always allow the roll.
Because that's just silly, and most people aren't going to have an issue with that.
Later, then I get to the other character. So later, in an hour or two, you reach in your pocket, you find this gold. What do you do?
The paladin just goes around the bar. Is this yours? I think you put this in my pocket.
I think you put this in my pocket.
I didn't mean to do a Lark impression.
That was pretty good. That's that is where I think I draw the line.
So somebody's
those types of skill-based roles.
Like there's a morality conflict happening, and somebody's trying to convince the other person of their point of view.
Yeah,
you would. I would almost. I wonder if it would be valid without talking. If that just organically came up in a moment and you didn't think to talk to the group about those sort of conflicts, do you think it would be fair to ask the convincee, not the person trying to get their point across, but the person that is being talked to? Would it be reasonable to ask that person, do you want to be convinced? Do you want to roll?
It's reasonable to say, do you think that the right argument would convince you?
Okay.
And if they say that, maybe the right argument could convince me, I would then take it a step further. It says, do you want to continue to role play this scene, or do you want to have the other player roll? And if they're okay with the roll, then you just go with the roll to move the scene on. If they're not, they're like, I know my character's firm. They know what they want. They know what they think in this moment. Then you say, then that's that. And I will be very poignant. There have been times that I've struggled with this as a DM from a DM perspective, because there are NPCs that become very locked in a very particular way, but then a very influential PC will come up and try to convince them or talk to them or whatever, and they roll so well that I have to think they said something in that made this person question this very firm belief. I almost look at it like the opening of Dogma, where Matt Damon's character is convincing a nun that God doesn't exist, when he is literally
he's literally playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. And it's that type of moment. It's like this person has dedicated their entire life to this pursuit. There's no changing their mind on this yet. Here we have a PC who walks in and goes, "Yeah, I'm changing your mind on this." It's really brutal.
One thing that I think could potentially facilitate more morality conflict or philosophical conflicts between characters would be allowing the players to have their in-character conversation, their in-character debate, and then asking, maybe doing something with insight checks. So the person who's trying to be convincing, they talk through their point, and then you have the other person roll an insight, and you can maybe allow the convincer to try to express more subtext, something that your characters have been spending a lot of time together. You might catch on to a nonverbal cue.
I see what you're saying. I might allow them to do that anyway.
Sure. Just trying to figure out how to keep people from hitting a wall in the conversation, giving them some tool that allows them to garner a little bit more information that just their improv is not reaching. That might help in terms of characters debating, which might turn into players arguing. You want to get a little bit of insight into where they're coming from.
I agree with that, but I think you can just ask for that without necessarily needing the roll.
Sure.
Insight is another one of those areas that I'm like, it's a tough area, because insight is kind of a heated debate as a skill anyway. A lot of people use it as a lie detector. I've accidentally used it like that several times. It becomes very difficult to get the subtleties of insight just right.
Sure.
So adding that into a situation where both people have agency becomes even more difficult. So I really would hesitate to even do that. I've been hesitating more and more on allowing social roles between characters. Is that saying it's never going to happen? No. If the two of you, have a battle of wits or something, and it's hard to role play that out necessarily because some people do well with improv and some people don't.
But your character is inherently
one character may be inherently very witty, and the other.
I've always, and you and I might have a disagreement on this, but it's one of the reasons that I always get a little hung up on people demanding bards to perform in character. Someone might be playing a bard because they themselves are not super charismatic and musically talented, and they want to play someone who is. So having meta conversations about what they do is way more satisfying for that person than to be like, no, you better have a monologue ready. It's like, those are two different types of people that want to play bards. The ones that want to perform because they're good at performing.
You said two different things there.
Okay.
So you said performing, that's one thing, and having a monologue, that's different. I always want any character if it's specifically like oration and they're trying to
sorry. When I said monologue, I mean like a soliloquy.
Got it. I would ask in those moments, like, what are you trying to get across? It doesn't have to be the monologue, but what are you saying? Because I want people to be able to react around you. I want to hear the emotion you're trying to express. I want to hear what you're trying to get across. But when somebody's trying to do something social, no matter who it is, I always want them to try to role play it first. Whether they succeed to convince me or not, or convince the character or not with just their words, is who cares? You're going to get your role or you're going to succeed. Those are your two choices. That's my two options to give you. Is I'm either going to have, yes, what you said makes sense to this person, or what you said you're trying to say, or I'm going to have you roll. Those are the two options. You can't fail by trying to talk to someone. Usually, there have been people have proven me wrong on that, but not in this group. But in other groups, I've had people say things as like, "Okay," like walk into the throne room, like, "We're here to kill the king." I said it sarcastically. It doesn't matter. The king is escorted out. There's 20 guards brought in, Well,
you walk into a theater and you go, "Oh no, it's a fire!" That doesn't matter if you said it sarcastically.
Yeah, exactly. I made a sarcastic comment in a D&D group and got banned for it. So, it happens.
So back to the player v player thing. I've made this comment before. It was probably a long time ago during the show. That there is a point in which sometimes if a PvP, like a verbal PvP situation arises, and maybe things get a little heated, or you've realized that they're sort of debating in a circle and not really achieving any resolution to this conflict, that I think it would be very useful to sort of put the brakes on the argument that's happening and sort of dial it up to a more meta conversation to wrap it up and say, for lack of a better way to describe it, okay, so you get a minute to explain to all of us what your character tries to get across over the rest of this argument. And you also tell us what they're trying to get across for the rest of this argument, and then tell us how you walk away from this. What's the tone of the walk away? Because when you have these role play moments of argument, some people don't know how to do that little, like, I put the pin in it, like I walk away. Sometimes there's not that moment of dramatic resolution or satisfying end to an argument or a conversation, and it just keeps going because no one knows how to end the conversation. So sometimes as a facilitator, a DM needs to be able to understand when to read, like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. Let's try to talk. All right, so what does the rest of... So you guys continue to fight. What does the rest of that fight resolve in? Do you guys, do you yell at each other and then just start, like, you go get drinks and you try to just ignore it, hash it out, and you're fine because you just needed to get all of that vitriol out of your systems? Or are you not talking to each other for the next few days on the road?
And what you just said there, which I actually really like as a solution... I already know, because it's been talked about before, because I've done things like that, not thinking necessarily that should be how it not thinking that's the reason why I was doing it, and not thinking that would be a consistent thing I would do, but I started to like that idea. But there are players out there who would much rather just role play out the fight. And so what do you do to talk to those people? How do you express to them that this is, where do you draw the line and things like that?
Sure.
Those are all good questions that you need to decide for yourself.
And having those considerations early, maybe before a fight breaks out, that if you have very passionate players in your party, it might be good to set some ground rules. Maybe that's a session 0 thing. Do you guys, some people like acting out arguments and having deep philosophical conversations, or do you find it uncomfortable when that happens? So then you sort of get a gauge for the tolerance of the group, that say, listen, if I'm going to make the adjudications, and I know it's going to be frustrating sometimes if I interrupt a conversation, but it's going to be from a place of, this doesn't seem like it's being productive now, and we need to make it productive. So we're going to work in a meta way to resolve conflicts if I feel like it's starting to go in a circle. And that's going to be my judgment call, and I hope you guys can respect that I need to maintain a certain flow to the game. If 2 people in a group of 6 are having this argument, I can't sit here for an hour
letting you argue it out.
Right, while everyone else is just sort of sitting there. I need to make considerations for the other players. And that's where sometimes safety tools can come into play. You can ask the other players how they're doing during a fight that other people are in. Because if they're uncomfortable, then maybe you should start transitioning out of that argument and say, hey guys, we're gonna fast forward, let's fade to black. What is the outcome of this argument right now? Because this is not going anywhere.
I think a lot of that comes down to the group and the dynamic in the group, because there are particular scenes out there in some streams. One of the best, most famous ones is a particular scene. I won't spoil anything, even though it was season 1. But in Critical Role, there was a scene with Sam, who got into an argument with the rest of the group. Not Sam, but the character,
sure.
Who got into the argument with the rest of the group, and it resulted in walking out. And if the scene had been cut short, it would have destroyed that entire moment.
Sure.
But that group knows each other extremely well. They understand drama. They understand storytelling on a level that most players and even most DMs don't, because that's what they do for a living.
Right.
So it makes sense that certain times it can let them go. So if you have a group that you trust and you have a group that can work through that.
And that felt like a very important moment.
That's
understanding
good
that
point. Yes.
Understanding when those watershed moments are. Okay, this is they're about to go fight the big bad. My party's having an argument. Maybe I need to let this play out, because this could be an emotional capstone to their story. Yeah. But if it's just, we're walking down the road and somebody stole something for the 16th time and we're upset, and so they're yelling, right? This is not productive. Understanding that.
So that's a very good point. Zach, you just made a good comment there about having players roll before they do their oration or their speech, and
I personally love this every so often. I love it.
For this particular one, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I love the idea of rolling first, even though I'm not very good at remembering to do it or telling my players to do it. I love the idea of rolling first and then describing the role, as opposed to trying to make the role fit into whatever you did. The flip side of that is, occasionally in this type of moment, I want it to be the opposite, because what I do is, if they have a chance just with their words of role playing and convincing me that what they're saying needs to be the way it is, so they can convince the character or intimidate them or whatever, just from their words, because of good role play. Now, people who don't think they're good role players have done that to me numerous times, and they always seem surprised by it. Because they are good role players. I've never met a really bad role player when they're trying. When you're trying, I can understand what you're trying to get across. So what I do is, they get varying degrees of success. So if somebody gives me, so I said earlier, there's 2 options. Either I'm going to let you succeed, or I'm going to let you roll dice. And the let you roll dice is split into 2. Either it's going to be a straight roll, or you did a good job and I'm going to let you roll. But even if you roll poorly, we're now shifted in success. It's like you added plus 10. You know, a 1 or 2 is still an 11 or a 12 because you did such a good job with your oration. So in this case, I don't want them to go, oh, I rolled a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or whatever. I guess I just didn't do a very good job and just skip over the oration part. I want to hear them impassioned and in the moment, and then we'll deal with the dice later.
The roll first, then perform is something that I find is most palpable in a couple of scenarios. One, when the stakes of the roll are very low. So I want to go chat up this person at the bar. Okay, give me a persuasion roll, or give me a charisma check, and they roll. Okay, give me what a 3 charisma looks like as you walk up to this person, like that very low stakes where the failure is potentially hilarious for everybody involved.
You're making the smolder face, and you
somehow you
try to drink from your beer, and you it dribbles all down your chin, and
somehow you invent blue steel.
Yeah. You're doing the white guy overbite.
It's weird. You don't have a Romanian accent, but you took one on while you were talking to them, calling yourself a wild and crazy guy.
And then it gets to that moment where you're like, I've been talking like this too long. I have to talk like this with this person forever now.
Right. So I still don't know how to set expectations for that kind of balance, because I enjoy that improv, that meta improv that can happen sometimes where everybody's together just making a scene more and more ridiculous.
Yeah.
As opposed to making them have to role play it out. I think it comes down to how important is it? Yeah. If you're willing to let people just goof off.
How in the moment is it? I think the best thought is with a group that knows each other very well. I think the best way to look at it is, did the person just start role-playing into it? Are you in the middle of it and it's just going? Don't stop the flow to ask for a dice roll before they do something. Just let them go. If they're in a moment like that, let it happen. And then a lot of times, those moments, those good role-play moments where everyone's going, I don't ask for any dice rolls. Everyone succeeds because it's too important to stay in that moment. Now, the flip side of that is you get characters who have really high charisma going, why do I never roll persuasion? Well, because you always succeed because your persuasion is plus 13.
And that's a scenario I think that is very important to impress upon your players when you start, that you're not always going to roll, but I will always keep your skills in mind. That if you're super good at something, I'll do my best to describe the fact that you are incredibly talented at this, or I might just let your words stand on their own because I know that you're a very charismatic character. So I won't make you roll because, you're rolling at a plus 13.
And there are times in certain combats, I don't make the fighters roll either. It's like, you're going to go up to this bar guy and you're a 13th level fighter and you punch him. Okay. Do you want to kill him or do you just want to knock him out? It's like,
right.
You're like an ex-Marine going into a bar. It's like, you could kill this guy in a heartbeat if you wanted to. Just punch him in the nose and you're going to, it's just, that's it. You can either kill him or knock him out. It's your choice. There's no question.
So as I said, there are 2 scenarios that I can think in my head where rolling first before describing can be very powerful. One, when the stake is really low, when it's more fun to just let it play out, like, okay, whatever happens, happens. Or in a game itself where nobody takes it that seriously, when people's investment is reasonable, but their preciousness is low. They're not so beholden to make sure their character isn't an idiot that they don't want that to happen. Right. I don't know how to gauge that off the bat. I don't know if there's not really a magic question to figure out whether a person is like that or not, but there are players that would prefer to have complete control over their characters being idiots versus the players who are like, hey, if I roll shitty, I will roll with it. I am happy to have the fates decide that my character could not step over this step without tripping on their face and rolling down a flight of stairs. Like, I rolled shitty on my decks. Okay.
Exactly.
But there are full games where that can happen. Like, I've watched actual plays where this feels like a higher stake than it is, had somebody roll persuasion to convince, like, an army to follow them, and he rolled, like, a 4. And the DM's like, okay, give me a 4-level charismatic speech to the army. And he proceeded to have to improv this terrible speech.
Anyone can do that.
Yeah, but it's
That's
the
what anyone
willingness.
can do.
But it's the willingness to do that. So understanding whether or not your players are willing to let things completely blow up in their faces. Not everybody's comfortable with that. They're heroes. They want to play the hero fantasy, so you need to understand how to...
All heroes have flaws.
Right, but you have to understand how to balance...
All good heroes have flaws.
How to balance your players' expectations with keeping the game feeling like victory's not guaranteed, that they have to work for it, that sort of thing. I think I am going to be challenging myself on my next campaign to figure out that balance for myself, because I love players who are willing to go with the role, that are like, yep, I'm just terrible at this today. And yeah, I want to try to figure out how to do the role first, act second, and not feel like I'm taking something away from them if they want to have more control over how they approach a situation.
It is, it's a tough question. Should we earn some money?
Earn some goodwill? I like it. Let's earn some goodwill.
Earn goodwill?
I don't know. We don't get money every time we say the word Die Hard Dice.
No, but we don't get any money from Die Hard Dice, but we do. We did get money. They sponsored our big event, so.
Well, let's talk about that first.
We get dice to give away, and we get special coupon codes, and we get beautiful sample dice sent to us. So let's earn some dice and earn some World Anvil and earn some awesome. So,
shall we start with the network and then talk about the party? Okay, so we are very, very proud members of the Nerdsmith Network. You can find us on nerdsmith.org. We are an entertainment group of podcasters and obviously streamers and video creators and role players. We just love making nerdy content available to everybody. And if you like this show or you've checked out any of the shows that we have on nerdsmith.org and would like to support us, make it rain a little bit, help us keep the lights on, or keep doing this as a passion, money, by the way. Making it rain.
Asking people to support us, because that's what we do.
We only accept donations in the form of flipping bills at us. No change. We have to make an appointment for it. We have to meet up in the same city for that to happen. So if you like any of the shows that you see on nerdsmith.org and you want to support us, one of the best ways to do that is to become a subscriber on Nerdsmith. You can choose any number of support levels, and that allows our creators to have a reliable, quantifiable monthly income that helps them be able to do this more reliably and safer. We want to make sure that our creators are compensated for all the really hard work that they do and all the things they lovingly put out for free for everybody. So if you have the altruism bug and want to help some very passionate, very lovely people, you can check us out at nerdsmith.org/donate to see how you can help and some of the cool things that you get as a Nerdsmith subscriber, including access to bonus content, which is a bunch of freebie, fun flights of fancy that we've all put together as shows that you can check out, special episodes, and one-shots, and all sorts of stuff that our creators have done because they like making stuff so much. And if you want to meet any of us in person on March 30th. On March 30th, which is a Saturday, we will be at WonderCon hosting our first ever Nerdsmith Network meetup party. It's a party. This is way more than just like hanging out at a table.
The party. That's true. All right.
Yeah.
Not first ever. Oh, it is. Okay. First ever party. Yes.
So the Nerdsmith meetup sponsored by World Anvil, and refreshments sponsored by Die Hard Dice. We will have some giveaways from both of our wonderful sponsors, and a bunch of us creators are going to be there. So if you happen to be in Anaheim in the last weekend of March, you should check us out. We're going to be at the Hilton.
You don't even have to be going to WonderCon. You
Correct.
can come by the hotel because it's at the hotel, the Carmel Room at the Hilton. So you don't even have to go to WonderCon if you're not planning on going. We'll still be in the area. You're welcome to come by. In addition, the first 50 people will be getting free drink tickets for our bar. We'll have a bar there. It's a no-host bar, except for the first 50 tickets. And as Angela said, the World Anvil was our event sponsor, and then the beverages, water, tea, and things were sponsored by Die Hard Dice, and they're just stand-up people. And we have Die Hard Dice to give away at the event. We have a bunch of other giveaways too. It looks like there's
Heather's
a
been hard at work.
lot of stuff. Yeah, Heather's making some crafts and things we're going to give away. She's just been really, really incredible. Heather's an amazing asset to Nerdsmith.
And I put the event details in chat if you want to check out our Facebook event. It would be really awesome if you plan on going to let us know that you're coming, because numbers help us get some understanding of what we want to do next year, so we can plan ahead and
we have to tell the Hilton
know
how
what
many
to
people are
expect.
coming.
That's very true.
So we had to give them an estimate about a week before. So
we want our estimate
to
be as realistic as possible.
Yeah, but of course then we're going to meet 1,000 new people at WonderCon, and hopefully they'll all come. All right, hopefully half will come.
But anyway, so yeah, that's our big news with the network. We, as we had said a little bit earlier today, a couple of our shows on the network include Homebrew Studios, which will not be airing today. Matthew is under the weather. I feel his pain, and he'll be back next week, hopefully. And we have a little while till our next streams premiere, but
yeah, well, we've had Tooth and Nail just joined the Twitch channel Curious Crafts. Anne or Kajari on Twitter just joined. She has 3 different shows she's brought over to the network. Tooth and Nail is Orion and Travis do a monster podcast where they talk about the monsters and things. If you're really into monsters but don't want it from the D&D angle, you can go see Heavenly and Ellie do Monster Crush, where they talk about cryptids and dating them. And of course, coming up, the thing that I guess we're not supposed to talk about. So we got a big show coming up.
We can talk about it.
You know, you keep making mixed messages here.
I'm sorry.
People tell me we're not supposed to talk about
No. I was just asking Rachel to hold off on releasing the art till we had the Twitter page up, and now we do, so we can start talking about it.
So we'll go to post the Twitter page. So we have a lot of changes coming on the 9th of next month. That's the second Tuesday, I believe, of next month. We have a lot of big changes. One, Countless Heroes will not be streaming on Tuesdays. We're going to be replaced by Shenanigoons Live, which is the Shenanigoons podcast coming live. It's going to be an only live show from here on out, so we're probably not going to include that live part necessarily.
We'll probably just call it Shenanigans.
It'll just be Shenanigoons. And it's not the Shenanigoons anymore. We fixed the logo. We got rid of the
grammartician
and she needed a bonus for all her hard work, and I gave her that.
A negative
and we deleted the website. So we didn't actually have a website. We had a web address. That was about it. And if anybody knows who owns shenanigoons.com, tell them we want to buy it. And
nothing there. There's nothing there.
There's nothing with it. People sit on a lot of websites and then don't contact you when they say they want to buy it. So
you know, there's a reason, right? Like they want to have the copyright because they know something else is happening or something. There's reasons to hold on to website. Anyway,
so that's going to be happening. Shenanigans will be premiering the live version then.
April 9th at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. PST. And then at noon PST that day, we have Final Rites, an all Tiefling cast with just Jason Catrone, the nicest mobster you'll ever meet. He still doesn't know I do that. He is,
oh God.
I've literally done it every single time. He is DMing the 3 tieflings and a guest that will rotate in as often as they can find guests that want to rotate in. And they are on a riverboat on the River Styx. which is the neutral ground between heaven and hell. It's kind of how I've been describing it.
That's basically just yeah.
And it is a really, really cool concept. The art is amazing.
Rachel Denton.
Is it Heavenly that's in the game?
Heavenly is also in our game.
You and Rachel Denton.
Rachel Denton.
And it's incredible. So you're going to want to take a look at that. Things are looking really good. The art is amazing. The textures on the layout are amazing. You're not going to want to miss that.
Well, and as the next few weeks go by,
that's at noon PST every other Tuesday.
Noon PST. And correct. So starting on the 9th and then every other. In
the gaps in between when the other week's off, in the tiefling hole, as we've been calling it, Discover RPG will be doing our World Anvil stream during those times. You don't let me finish. I'm talking here. The audience is listening to me. We will be filling the tiefling hole with our World Anvil stream. Love torturing Angela. No, but we'll be doing our World Anvil stream. We're going to try to focus down a little bit more. We're going to be trying to pick a particular topic and do about half an hour to an hour of world building for one thing. And just be like, okay, we're going to try to we'll focus on this one thing. Angela will be typing away furiously. I'll be probably scribbling notes down furiously as we sit here and talk and build on one particular aspect of one particular world that we are working on, or one concept or whatever. So we might choose like the Nicosta and just try to focus on one race from our world building, or we might choose Lamina Island and build some new ideas for Lamina Island. And I'll pull from different sources and be like, oh, well, here's a cool monster I've always wanted to fit in. I think it works well in Lamina from this company, Kobold Press or whatever. And we'll see how it fits in and talk about how it might fit into the world and just fill out the article about it. Because that's how we're building Veil, is just, one article at a time, one little step at a time. And that'll help us focus now. So that's going to be what we do every other week gap in the schedule. So we have something going on at noon PST on every Tuesday.
Yep. And as the weeks go by before April 9th, the premiere, the Final Rights Twitter page, Final Rights RPG, we'll be putting out a lot of little bio stuff. We'll put out information about the 3 ladies on our ship, our 3 tiefling ladies, and hopefully some fun stuff coming up so you can get little glimpses into the world that we're building. We're very excited to share it with you. So shall we talk a little bit specifically about our sponsors then? Because we have some things to share for sponsors. So as we had said, our event is going to be sponsored by World Anvil. We were just talking about the idea that we're going to have a World Anvil specific stream. But you can check out as this year goes by, I think we're going to have a number of shows that are storing things on World Anvil as they're doing world building and character creation and all sorts of cool stuff. You should definitely check it out. World Anvil just released a new subscriber level called Sage for artists and creators that want to monetize their world building, come up with basically figuring out what they can give their viewers, whether that's patrons or backers, to justify the support. If you want to share the worlds that you're creating or the art that you're making for your world, you should definitely check out the Sage level of World Anvil subscriptions. I'm just repeatedly amazed every day talking to the 2 owners, Demetrius and Janet. They are unbelievably wonderful people. They're really passionate about what they do, and they can't believe the outpouring of support and excitement that their little pet project turned into. They are now at over 200,000 active users on the site, which is incredible, and we're so proud of them, and they deserve it. They work incredibly hard and diligently on making World Anvil the best world-building software that you can find on the internet. You should know, Logan, you tried them all.
I have.
How do you make World Anvil show up on our chat? Do we have a code?
Type, exclamation World Anvil, baby? I don't know.
Nope. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, World Anvil is awesome. You should go check them out. And our other sponsor for this show is Die Hard Dice, who make incredible custom designs for metal dice and polymer dice. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the new colors that they came out with. The Spellbinder series, which has gorgeous swirls of color in there. There's fire colors, there's like a water or a more astral color schemes.
It's incredible.
They're so good. So you should check them out at dieharddice.com.
So Die Hard Dice, and I always like to say this, they satisfy every one of my particular itches when it comes to companies I want to work with. We want them to be very inclusive and open. We want them to be friendly. We want to feel like we could talk to them if necessary. They respond to us when we need them. Those are all part of it. But then they have a unique product. They not just now. Some of their products are resales of other products, but they're trying to phase those out. They're trying to only have products that are theirs, and they're starting to do new polymer sets and things. But their dice, the metal ones, everybody seems to have the same kind of typical way they do metal dice. Theirs are very unique. They 3D they 3D designed their own dice. They look unique. No one else can have these dice, or if they do, they're breaking the law, basically. No one else can have these dice. And then they just started adding color to them. That blew my mind. And now they're doing 2 different colors on the same side. And it's freaking me out. I didn't even know it was possible. They do all of that in-house. They do their own color testing and things before sending off to the manufacturer and be like, look, this is what it has to look like. And they have very high standards. In addition to that, they are very generous with all of the people that have ever won any contests or anything, and they're very generous with us as a company. As soon as they heard about our meetup, they sent dice immediately for us to give away, a bunch of them, 20 or 30 different dice, all metal. So it's probably $200 worth of product. And then on top of that, when we needed it, they put money down to help make sure that the meetup was going to happen when we struggled after a snafu with the hotel and the bill doubled. They put their money where their mouth was, along with World Anvil. That's the type of companies we want to work with, and that is why we're going to be Die Hard Dice forever. There's going to be no change in my mind on that. I mean, I guess there's always something could happen, but
we go to space and there's a better alien dice company.
Nothing else major. Yeah, there's some alien dice companies. I mean, these are all made out of meteorites. They're only $1 each. It's like, oh crap.
These dice are sentient.
Yeah, they will roll whatever you want them to roll. Hey now, these dice all have 20s on the side.
Anyway, okay, so I think that's enough waxing poetically about how much we love our sponsors and our network.
Did we give out the coupon code? And did we talk about our contest?
We should do both those things.
So, countless DRPG, 4 little letters, gets you 15% off on the Die Hard Dice. So DRPG, and that will get you 15% off. Just use that coupon code to check out. Also, please use that coupon code because that's how they know you came from here. That's how we show the sponsor love. Besides what we do here, but the idea that's how they track and know that we're doing a good job for them, and we want to be with them for a very long time, but we can't do that without your help in supporting them. So please go to Die Hard Dice and use the coupon code DRPG, 4 little letters. That coupon code works once for anybody, so even if you've purchased there before, you can still use it. And then they also let us give away a set of dice every month, which is incredible. All you have to do is go and tweet about the show, and as in tweeting about the show, you will be entered to win automatically to win a metal set of Die Hard Dice, and we'll choose that winner on our last show of the month, I believe, or is the first show of next month.
It's not even have to be metal, though. It's your choice of dice. Metal is just the biggest bang for your buck.
you could, that's the biggest bang for your buck. You could decide you wanted a dice tray, or you wanted one of the dire D20s, these 25 millimeter D20s that could kill an animal if tossed at. So be careful. They are incredible. Yeah, so whatever you want from the website, they have not left any restriction on. But the metal Poly set is their best product, especially if it's the Mythica line, which is their newest one, especially if it's one of the Spellbinders. And yes, even the brand new, fully just released products are available for that. So you just make your choice, you let us know, and then we'll get you that coupon code.
You've got to. I'm not going to put too much specifics on it, but at the moment, you got real good chance with our giveaway for March. So go use that code. Go use that hashtag. Yeah. Discover RPG.
And spread the word about the show. Tell people about the show, because we would really like to see our numbers grow. We're not going to slow down. We're not going to stop doing this. Angela and I do this anyway. We sit here and we have these conversations all the time anyway. So we're just really kind of sharing our life with you a little bit. And we got our sponsorship with Die Hard Dice. We work with them, and you can go see our videos on their blog. We got the first one that's up there. We'll be getting some more up very soon. And then they'll be over on our, after we release the next one, the first one, the previous one will go over on our YouTube page. So you can go subscribe to our YouTube page, and just share the word. If you just share all about us, then people will get to know us, and hopefully we will grow and grow and grow. We can do more amazing content as we go. So yeah, and one of the things we're talking about doing, and I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but it's something that we've been kind of teasing. We're going to be at WonderCon, and we're going to have the ability to do some in-person video interviews. So we're hoping to get all sorts of people. But if there's any questions you have, or anybody at WonderCon you would like to see us talk to, let us know. If you know that they're going to WonderCon, we're reaching out to a lot of people right now and trying to schedule just little sit-down 10, 15-minute interviews, because we're going to be at the Hilton right across the way, so it's real easy to do. And we can, just be glad to see if we can get an interview with somebody that you're interested in. So anybody artist or otherwise, artist, role player, game designer, game company, whatever you want to know, whatever you want to do, let us know, and we'll go and we'll talk to them, and we'll see if we can find out the information. All right? I
don't know how feasible this is, Logan, but I'd love to go around WonderCon and just with a camera and a decent mic and ask people, like, what's your favorite D&D class and why? And just do a montage of that.
Last time I was there,
questions.
I did see a person doing a podcast. They had their little Zoom recorder and two microphones. They were going around doing it. It worked really well. That is something we could do. Definitely better with two people. But yeah, if you have something you want us to talk about, I'm sure that we'll grab some footage, and we're going to put some stuff together for some future videos. So just let us know. Just let us know what you're interested in, what you'd like, and we'll get that going. All right. All right, so let's go ahead. We went a little long on that, but we went a little long earlier, actually, and that's kind of pushed everything. Yeah. So let's go ahead and at least get through one more question.
Sure. Do you want to talk about improv, or do you want to talk about something a little more condensed? Because improv's a big topic.
Well, we're specifically talking about town guards and
NPCs how to have those prep.
For me, so the question is, how do I make my town guards not look like idiots when somebody goes up and asks them about something in the town? And the only answer for me is I make that shit up. I just whatever comes to mind right then, I say the stupidest, most ridiculous things. That's one way to handle it. I have found another way that I've started to handle it. I ask the players. I turn it around to the players and say, well, this town isn't fully developed yet, so you tell me what, you're looking for a bar. Okay, you're asking this guard what this bar is like. You tell me what's the name of the bar that the guard tells you. What does it look like? What's unique about it? That's always the one thing that gets me. Businesses and places that belong in hero universes are always unique. There's always a quirk or something. So I always ask about that, and let them build it. And they will forget that your guard didn't tell them this. They will know that it comes from the guard, but they get to be a part of the world building. That is a huge benefit. And feel free to veto things if they get a little too ridiculous, because, no, please take this seriously. And another way to do it is, well, give me some suggestions. And then you choose one out of what the players are saying. If they have a tendency to get a little ridiculous. But yeah, in general, those are two ways to handle it. Is you just make something up, and if you don't like what you made up later, burn it to the ground. I mean, it's It doesn't need to exist. Or you can do what I do and just never talk about it again. Just give them alternatives later for the same thing they're looking for, and they will forget about it. There's enough
for that one person.
going on. Well, there's always that one person, Heather, who writes notes about everything. Well, and actually we have 2 people who write notes about everything. But even then, sometimes I go back and watch previous episodes. I'm like going, completely forgot about this thing. So will the players. Everyone forgets about it because it didn't become important. You can make other things important. So you got a lot of different options there.
I will say that you and I come from slightly different philosophies. So I'd like to talk a little bit about structured improvisation. One of the things, and I'm going to put a link in the chat, a particular website that I use all the time is Ash's Guide to RPG Personality and Background. And I use it to make my characters, but it is also, in my opinion, a very good resource to give yourself some templates. Even if you don't have everything prepped, you absolutely not expect everything to be pre-written for you. And you can't, unless you're expositing very specific information, you're not going to have scripts for your characters, for your NPCs. Because your players are going to come up with questions you're not prepared for. But one of the things that I really recommend, and you don't have to have them assigned to every NPC specific, but particularly this Ash's Guide to Personality has a couple of things like primary and secondary motivators. And if you can just pinpoint a motivator for an NPC, that can help you a lot to consider their point of view, what they focus on, and what their answers are going to be like. Because some of the examples in the page are, say you have a guard that shows up. The difference between a guard who fixates on keeping order, I want things to be structured, I want people to follow the rules, I want people to not go all crazy chaotic. A guard like that the party interacts with is going to be very different at times than a guard whose primary motivator is status and recognition and I want to get I want promotions, I want people to think I'm a hero. Like, that's a different character than the one who is more focused than anything else on keeping order in the city. So if you're able to pinpoint a specific motivator, even if it's just one and you're kind of a one-note character, that should help you a little bit to understand how they're going to react to it sometimes overly chaotic players. So sometimes just having little things, and this kind of comes back to random tables that are around for D&D. You want to roll a random NPC, but in this case it's, I have a bunch of reasonable motivators that I think I can improvise that person's personality. You can have those on a list and say, okay, you want to go talk to a shopkeep? All right, well, this shopkeep, okay, I can do that. So they're really meticulously clean. They're obsessed with making sure they have control over everything in their store. So that's going to be a person that doesn't have a lot of patience for somebody dicking around in the shelves, like thinking, oh, well, they're probably stealing something. I need control over my shop. So then you can decide, is that going to be a very strict person? So like a little seed of a concept can help you broaden your portrayal of that character. And having information seeds that are not locked in, we've talked about the linchpin as a concept of linchpins can be your downfall if you're insistent. They must speak to this person at this location to get this exact piece of information. Yeah. You can just write down a whole bunch of things about your town. They can be relevant to the story or they cannot be relevant, but that's a little fact that the guard or the shopkeep can have at their disposal when they're asked questions. And maybe they don't know anything about what the characters are asking, but if you don't lock an NPC into knowing a very specific piece of information, you maybe come up with an interesting idea that you have this guard that knows a lot about this wizard tower over there because maybe he wanted to be a wizard at one point in his life and he had to be a guard. So you can build backstory based on what random piece of information you have for a random NPC.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. Actually, you say we might be at odds there, but I agree with you. It's
just a different perspective. I tend to like having plans.
Yeah,
I like having some notes.
I do like having notes. I'm just bad at doing them. I would like to talk about what Kyle is asking about there.
Yes, I see that.
Kyle is asking,
read what Kyle,
what do we do about players who hem and haw and take forever on their turns, especially maybe in a streaming situation, but even in general? How do we
specifically in combat?
Specifically in combat, how do we resolve this idea that after hemming and hawing for 5 minutes, it may still come to nothing? So I have dealt with this a lot. There's many different ways to handle it, and a lot of it depends on the spoons that you have. One of the ways that I did that was the most effective initially, but had some unexpected drawbacks, was I timed everyone and I showed them.
That was a time.
I literally went, here's how long you're taking in combat. People sit here. We've got 6 people. People are like, it's been 28 minutes since my last turn. What happened? I showed them. Well, you took 4 minutes, and then the next person took 5 minutes, and then one person took a minute, and then the DM took a minute and a half or whatever, but he's got 4 monsters, and then this person took 12 minutes. It was very eye-opening. Now, the unintended consequences. The next day, we gamed, and everybody was Johnny on the spot. Too much. There were no more descriptions. There was no more flavor.
I do this. It's like speed chess.
It was like speed chess. So there's got to be a happy middle ground somewhere. Now,
I have a proposal.
I have one other option. So one other way I've handled this, it was successful but stressful, is I timed people differently. I had a little chess clock basically behind the DM screen, or a little not chess clock, you just said speed chess.
Sand timer?
A sand timer. And I would turn it over, and it was a 1 minute sand timer. If it got to a minute, I would let them know that they have a countdown. It's like, okay, I need a decision, otherwise you're going to need to delay. And if they wouldn't make up a decision, I give them about another 5 to 10 count. I say, look, you just delay your turn. It's time to move on. And so their turn goes off initiative, and you can jump back in at any time you want. But the downside is they feel like they're being punished because their initiative becomes delayed. Now, I know DMs that do this but only give 20 or 30 seconds as their timer, which I think is a little bit too small. I think that if it was consistent, you did that in combat, I think it would become second nature. Nobody would have a problem with it. The problem you run into is where you start having people have disabilities, learning disabilities, ADHD, things like that, where they can't focus, and adding a timed limit only makes things more stressful on them. In those situations, I would recommend that they don't play complex characters. Don't play a character that has 1,000 options like a spellcaster. Or if you're going to play a spellcaster, play a sorcerer and limit your options. Or warlock and limit it down to 1.
Well, so... Damn it. I have since softened on the Warlock Eldritch Blast thing. Somebody rationalized it to me, and I'm okay with it now. Don't think of you as a spellcaster. You're a fighter with a sword that's a spell. But so I wanted to suggest, honestly, Kyle, that's not too far off. With my kids, I say, hey, you having trouble and want a suggestion? Do you want to pull the other players for help? I immediately saw a Clippy, but with Kyle's face on it. So it looks like you're trying to make a turn decision. Would you like some suggestions? You should be really passive aggressive, Logan, and have a Clippy pop
gift
up
that comes up. Yes, but it's like Clippy with a Viking helmet and a sword.
Yeah. Anyway, my pitch is, before combat, as your characters level, talk to your players about having a cheat post-it in front of them when they're playing. And that cheat post-it or note is your default action if you can't think of anything else to do. It's your backup plan. That if I can't think of what I want to do now, but I don't want to delay my turn, you should basically say, delay your turn, think about it more, or use Eldritch Blast. Like, it should have your default, like my character, if they can't think of what to do, is going to smack the closest person with a sword. That's just what they're going to default to do when they're flustered and don't know how to act.
Closest enemy.
Closest enemy, yes. Sorry. But so this idea of you always have a backup plan if you feel trapped, and there is no reason to not do the backup. And you set up a rule: if someone goes to their backup plan, nobody criticizes. This is literally a tool for you if you need that little ping of, okay, I need to act, I need something. This is a tried and true activity that your character can do that you know is well within your rights to do during that turn. That's
something I just thought about. If you did want to go with, and those are great points, if you did want to go with one of the options I had about timing people and going, okay, you're running out of time, you could have an option, maybe call it 30 seconds. Like 30 seconds, you got to at least tell me what you're going to do. And then you can take up to another 30 seconds to make it happen and make the dice rolls and everything. Or basically we'll move on and you can just DM me or write a note for the dice rolls and we'll deal with that later. But we understood what you did because we can't take any more time. But you can get people like twice per combat or 3 times per arc, whatever. Twice per combat's a lot, but 3 times per arc, or maybe just once per combat, you can ask for time and be like, no, this is an important decision. Something crucial is happening. I need more time to think about it. Then they can take all the time they want. This one time, you can take all the time you want. But every other time, yeah, basically time out. I need more time.
Is that a once per combat or a once per person?
Maybe once per combat would be a good per person. Once per combat per person. You can have more time if you're going to do that. Give them that option to have those moments, because for me, when I play a character, spellcaster or otherwise, I, as a DM, remember that it's very easy for me to remember that everything's happening at once. So if my character makes a mistake because I don't do the right thing in combat, it's because everything is happening at once. You can't control everything. You can't take everything into consideration when you're in combat. So I usually make my decision very early in what I'm going to do, and I have a backup plan if that doesn't go through. Like, I'm in a fire group over there, and if that group is out, then I'm going to this guy. Now, if the group doesn't exist, or there's an ally there and that guy doesn't exist anymore, I'll probably default to Fireball and just do a hit less people. I'll just magic missile a different enemy. The point is, I'm still doing the...
Oh no! We're paused. Oh no!
Same.
Okay. No, you're fine. You froze for a second for me.
Yeah, you're still cutting out. Oh, I'm red. Wow.
Okay, that's why Autumn put a robot in chat. Okay.
So where did you lose me? What I was thinking is I will very much make a decision and stick with it. So if I'm going to fireball that group, I'm going to, I have the backup plan, so I'll fireball that group, or I'll magic missile this guy if that group doesn't exist, and then if that doesn't fall through, I'll just magic missile somebody different. Even if I could have done something much better, if I can't think of that better thing instantly, I move on, and then I save that better thing for the next round. Because if we as a group did that and all made our turns only last 30 seconds to a minute, you would get more turns in combat. Combat would last longer, and you'd have more opportunities to do more significant things like that.
I had a thought based on something that Kyle said in chat. When he talked about the poll the players idea, do you want to poll your players? That is, to me, a sanctioned bit of metagaming where you're like, listen, we don't want to punish you for being caught up, but do you want to talk to everybody about what you want to do right now? Let's put a pause. That's a good use for your timeout idea. But I did just come up with a really good way of incorporating this into role playing. Somebody has a problem, clearly has hit a wall and doesn't know what to do. You give them the opportunity to poll the party, say, do you guys want to talk? But instead of just metagaming it, you treat it like, you guys are adventurers. You'd be strategizing all the time on downtime. Let's do a flashback. You pitch this concept, and everybody decides what you did, what you decided you would do in this situation. You give them general gist of the idea. Say, like, okay, so what happens if, like, Billy the Warlock is being caught over here, and I'm stuck 60 feet away and I can't hit him here? What should I be doing? And this idea that your players your characters, your heroes, you're trained to do these things. Why wouldn't you be strategizing and doing game plans all the time for different situations? Like, you don't have to like name them like football plays, but this inherent idea that you could, like you said, do a honey heist flashback. And then you say, okay, are you sure? Do you know what you're going to do? Okay, flash forward. We're back into combat. What do you do? So maybe this idea of giving them some role play opportunity, it might even give people a little bit of a break. It might disrupt combat a little bit, but I like the idea of maybe giving everybody a little bit of a mental breather and then popping them back in. And having them discuss things in character gives you as a DM the chance to, like, reconfigure yourself. Like, okay, all right, they're talking, they can just keep talking. All right, I gotta plan what I'm gonna be doing now because there's a bunch of shit going on in combat right now. I like the idea of you're even giving yourself some breathing room as a DM if you let them go roleplay for 5 minutes. Go figure out what you're going to do and then come back. So that's
almost players out of the room was a nice thing about in person.
But yeah, so that's, I'm going to try to incorporate that a bit in my games. I like this idea of a honey heist flashback of what did you guys do when you were prepping for fights days before, and you happen at one point during the 6 months you guys have been adventuring did talk about this general scenario.
Yeah,
what did you talk
I think that's
about?
a great idea. Absolutely. Turning into an in-game role-playing, or you watch fight scenes in movies like Lord of the Rings and things, there's banter going on. They're talking about strategizing what they could do in some situations. Not always, but some. But yeah, it's good.
And I'm a big fan of giving people the opportunity, maybe just deciding whether it's a free action or something, just letting people have a little bit of conversation. I've always found that the D&D turn-based combat does disrupt a little bit of that idea that you could have some sort of verbal strategizing on the field of combat during the combat, because just the way that turns are structured and the fact that theoretically everybody during that turn is acting at once, which kind of disrupts the idea that you could have a back and forth really quick. I've still yet to figure out how to get that to flow well with the 5e system of combat. I think there's better systems for doing that. I just don't know how to fix it. So I think this is an interesting method of allowing that strategic discussion to happen, but you're just saying, you guys had this conversation a week ago, you know what to do in this. So in those moments, you can be those heroic split-second decisions. Your character is decisive, but you don't have to be decisive in that moment.
Right, yeah. No, I love that.
New house rule. Going in my book.
Anyway, so there you go. There's a bunch of options. There's a bunch of talk. There's us for talking for 2 hours.
We, as expected, all laws of the universe prevented us from being able to finish our session plan. It's okay, we'll have stuff for next week. So next week we'll talk about Bottery Life, which I'm very excited about.
I'm very excited about Bottery Life.
We'll talk about, use the Discover RPG hashtag, send us examples for neat ways to reflavor health potions. Specifically, we're riffing off this idea that the Artificer Revised gave this idea, if you want to create health potions through a tinkering flavor, you could have a mechanical spider, go up to your party and weave their wounds closed. So one, gross if you're a little icky about spiders, but also very cool. So if you can come up with other ideas, clothing, magical items, something that does the exact same thing mechanically that a health potion does, but just makes your world feel a little more patchwork instead of just, here is the potion you take when you need to heal something. People are going to come up with other methods of doing that. So tell us if you have any cool ideas. We'll keep them up. We'll keep them in mind for the show when we talk about it.
And yes, and as always, tweet about the show. Please share all the excitement that we do here on Discover RPG. Share links to the VODs, which you can find over on our YouTube page, which we'll link, and be entered to win the Die Hard Dice competition. And then send us your questions. Send us the topics you want us to talk about.
Please.
We've hit a few snags. We can always find more, but we would love it if we could just have things flowing in and just have these great questions to choose from. We've had some weeks where the questions you guys bring up have just been incredible, and they make us think in a way that we don't find out on our own. So pull us out of our bubbles a little bit and challenge us. So give us some questions, give us some challenges, send us your horrible house rules. If you've ever run into a DM that's had a really bad house rule, let's send it to us. and we'd love to hear about that. So thank you guys very, very much. We're good. So that
I think so. Kyle, DM me that question about skills so that I can get exactly what you're asking, because I'm happy to talk about different skills in the 5e system.
This is not the right one.
But it's
There it
okay.
is.
Once in a while, we can have Electro Swing in the mix, not Boogie Woogie.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us for Discover RPG. We hope you walked away with some ideas, or at least a good couple hours spent while you're at work or at home or just goofing off. And yeah, you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you all next Wednesday on Discover RPG. Please do me a favor and be good to each other.
Good night, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.